Hello, Imaginers. Thank you for tuning in live. Please let me know that you can hear me, that you can see me, that everything is okay, that you see Corey up on screen as well. Today I am chatting with Corey Potter. I will let him introduce himself to you in a moment, and it's going to be a fantastic conversation about AI, but in more of the text world and website world and things like that. But everything relates to what is going on with Imagine, right? Everything connects. So you're going to be using AI in the future of your photography business one way or another. So we're going to talk about how to embrace it instead of just fighting it, and to utilize it properly and in intelligent ways. So my name is Scott Weinkiewicz. I am the community manager, and I got something in my throat, here at Imagine. If we haven't met before, it is nice to meet you now. My goal here is to help you get the most out of Imagine for the most part, and in some cases, other things as well. So you can spend less time worrying about the tedious part of your photography business and focus on more about what you love. So, Corey, thank you for being here, first of all. Thanks for doing this with me. I can't think of a better person to have this conversation with than you, because not only do you have strong opinions about all of this, but you're extremely knowledgeable about all of it. So thank you for joining me. Welcome, and share a little bit about yourself so everybody knows who you are.
All right. Thanks for having me. So I'm Corey, and I'm one of the guys behind Fuel Your Photos. We talk about SEO and websites for photographers. And while I've been doing that for, 7 or 8 years now, this past few months there's been an explosion of AI that has come onto the scene, especially for all things SEO, websites, content marketing. And I've been obsessed with it. Like, it's just been everything I can find to read. I've been experimenting with all the tools that I can find. And while a lot of the AI tools have been on the market for quite a while, this past few months there's been an explosion in new tools and new things to try. And so the big players, the big like Bing and Google and OpenAI, all of these guys are like really trying to redefine what search looks like, what it looks like to interface with knowledge, to ask questions and get answers on the internet. So I think that the future of how we use Google, how we use the internet, how we find businesses to work with, all of that is going to change because of AI. So I feel like it's so important for us to stay on top of what's going on and what these early changes look like and how we can take advantage of those.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Bing is actually using ChatGPT, whereas Google, like in their search results, whereas Google is using their own thing, right?
True. Yes. Well, pretty much. Yeah. They OpenAI and Microsoft have a partnership, so they have kind of this exclusivity where Bing is using GPT-4 and they're generating the responses, whereas Google has a whole different thing called Bard that they're using to generate their responses. So they're different models, but very similar implementation.
I've had a lot of fun playing around with both the C of ChatGPT and Bard. I mean, there's so many out there at this point, but
Yeah.
obviously those are the two main players currently. But I've had a lot of fun playing around with both and seeing what the same prompt would do in both cases.
Yeah. What are you
It's been
finding so far?
so I find ChatGPT gives far more detail. It's definitely more repetitive, but Bard seems to optimize things in ways that I think is really designed for Google. Like if I do a blog prompt, right, like to get me started on a blog post, I'm finding that Bard is giving me even like the bullet points, like almost the table of contents as well, like things that Google likes to see.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really
interesting. You know,
yeah.
what's really interesting is that Google's been working on the technology behind Bard for years now, and they didn't want to release it. They thought it wasn't ready. The web wasn't ready. The world wasn't ready. They were like, we need to figure out some more things about alignment and safety, and we need to make
Hmm.
sure that this is, things are going to be accurate and that we can trust the results because the results the answers that you get from these tools can be very convincing, even if they're wrong. They're very
Yep.
convincingly wrong.
Yep.
And so they know that people are easily misled by something that's very authoritative and comes from a brand like Google. They had to be careful because they don't want people to misplace that trust in something that could very easily give inaccurate answers. So they're like, we're not quite ready. This is not quite ready for prime time. OpenAI comes along and they're like, you know what? Screw it. You only live once. Launch. And they're like, let's just try this ChatGPT thing and see what
Yeah.
happens. And it blew up. Apparently, it was the fastest software to ever get to 1 million active monthly users. And it just like took the world by storm. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
everyone's like, wait, I've tried those chat things before and they were terrible, but this isn't terrible. I remember
Yeah.
my brother and I, the first week that came out, we were like sitting there sending each other text messages of like conversations we were having with it. We're like, wait, is this thing thinking? What is happening here?
Yeah.
There was just
Yeah.
something magic about it. Like if you really spend some time talking to ChatGPT and just like probing and like trying to get it to answer things that you wouldn't think that it could answer, you're like, wait a second, even though this
Yeah.
might not be perfect, this is way better than anything I've ever seen
Yeah.
before. And because that the public was able to see that, people were able to get their hands on it really easily for free. Google was pushed into, okay, I guess we have to respond to this. And so that's why we're seeing this like
Yeah.
AI wars in the search engines right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And something that started, I think it was last week maybe in ChatGPT that didn't exist prior was caused or pushed ahead because of what Google did with Bard, where Bard from day one, when Bard was released to everybody, um, it had access to the internet. So
Hmm.
like you could type in a domain and it could actually, or a URL, and it could actually review that URL and give you information.
Yep.
ChatGPT could not. Now it can.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's also something like that competition is is really driving this AI technology to grow faster, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting is that the deal with Microsoft made it so that Bing could implement GPT into their search results, and I think that they really thought that was going to get even bigger than it did. But what happened is when they put web browsing into ChatGPT, I think more people wanted to use web browsing directly in chat instead of chat inside of a browser or inside
Mhm.
of a search pane. So it'll be interesting to see like how that adapts. Right now, I think it's so early because the iOS app for ChatGPT just released like 2 weeks ago, and they don't even
Right.
have. I don't think they even have the Android out yet. So like we're at the stage where there's not even an app for these things yet. But as soon as what's going to happen eventually is it'll be built into devices, it'll be built into operating
Yeah.
systems, it'll be built into everything that you use.
Mhm.
And so like your Google Assistant now, if you're on a Google phone, or Siri, if you're on an
Yeah.
iPhone, like you'll just ask questions like you would to that, or like your Alexa or your Google Home or whatever other things you have, and it will be so much more intelligent, right? It'll be
Yeah.
this new sort of chat AI interface that is significantly more intelligent than things we have now. I think that's where it's probably going, but it'll be interesting to see like how long people still use like regular search engines, and how the results that they display change over time.
Yeah. So before we dive into, get even deeper into this, I just want to share with everybody who's watching. Everybody's watching live, so I know this does not relate 100% to the topic at hand, but I just want to share that we do have a coupon available for Imagine for anybody who is, in a trial, giving Imagine a try. If you're interested in hopping in and subscribing to Imagine and using it in your post production for your photo editing, your culling, and things like that. We do have a coupon code. It's embrace it. It's right here up on the screen. That it will, if you subscribe with that coupon code, you will get $20 added in AI editing credits added to your account. So consider that. And now I'm going to dive into. Oh, and also, if you have any questions, I'll put that back on the screen again. Please comment, ask. That's what we're here for. There are a lot of you watching, and we greatly appreciate it. And I know you're probably gonna have some questions, so get them into the chat, and we will get to those questions. We'll bring them up on screen. Okay, so the AI scene has exploded dramatically in the past 6 months. Do you think that's just human behavior that like we're so intrigued by these things that like the next fad, right? Like the new iPhone comes out and it blows up. The new Android phone comes, is announced and it blows up. Are we intrigued by this? Is there something that you think is causing these softwares to blow up the way they have?
I think that that's a big part of it. I think it's kind of what I was saying a second ago about the people who used ChatGPT and realized that it was magic, right? We just got to this point where I think the average person can say, wait a second, this gives me superpowers. Wait, what can I do with this? And I think that has sparked a lot of curiosity, and it's made it so that people can do things, especially software developers can do things faster than they ever could before. With Copilot, with even just ChatGPT as a coding assistant, I've been able, like, I've, dabbled in coding for a long time, but now I am able to like completely create apps, web apps, websites, like all the different kind of code that I could ever imagine wanting. I've been able to write things in Python and JavaScript. I'm getting so much better at doing anything I can imagine. All I need to do is just go ask ChatGPT, like, can you help me with this one thing I'm stuck on? And it just like walks me through it, starts the code for me, whatever. So I think one thing that's happened is a lot of people have seen the power of there were some nerds who knew this before, right? But then like everyone started to see it. And so all the different people out there who have ideas, who couldn't code before, are creating new companies and new software. People who have been coding are like, wow, I can take this to the next level. Companies who have teams of developers are able to generate far more output from the same number of employees because they have tools that can speed up the process of coding, that can do bug checks for them, all these kinds of things. So there's a new tool set that is coming out to support the creation of even more software, which will then kind of like complete that cycle and make it even faster to make software. And eventually, I think one of the interesting things is that we'll be able to just have custom software doing whatever we want by just describing what we want it to do. And, an assistant coding that up for us real quick and then running it and seeing if it works. So that's, I think, why we've seen such an explosion is just because more people have seen the magic and the capabilities and started to implement using those tools to create new things. And then that's been getting more attention. And then there's a lot of media attention, a lot of news attention, all of that.
Yeah, I feel like every day there's even more and more and more news discussion on all of these things popping up left and right.
And there's a lot of controversy too, like
Yeah.
with Midjourney, with a
Yeah.
lot of things where photographers especially are very like, I don't know how I feel about this. That feeling drives more attention as well. Whenever there's discussions that are starting and people have very different opinions and they disagree and they like, it's engaging, right? So I think that's drawn a lot of attention.
So just before we started going live, you and I were talking about Midjourney versus what Adobe's now doing in Photoshop. So let's dive into a little bit on like these AI tools that exist for photographers. Obviously, there's Imagine, and what we do is very personalized for every Imaginer. For every photographer who's using Imagine, it's a very personalized thing. It's not a generative AI tool like a ChatGPT or what Photoshop is doing with Firefly and everything built into Photoshop's beta right now, or what Midjourney's doing. So what are you seeing? What kind of new tools are you seeing come out there for different things for photographers? And what do you think what's the good, the bad, the controversial? Like, Yeah, let's go
Yeah,
into
I mean, I
that.
feel like pretty much any tool that you've been using that has software will probably be affected by AI in some way, right? Either it's because the developers who are creating the software are using it and making better software, or it's just going to be built into the software. So, like the things that I've been using forever, something like Notion, for example, just put AI right into Notion so that you can just like, you know, do whatever you
Yeah.
were doing with writing your notes, but then you can prompt an AI to finish it. The same kind of thing with like the Photoshop generative, you know, it gives you that new little field where you can have the AI do something. I think there are a lot of other softwares that are doing that same thing that I've been using.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what else specifically for photographers. There's I've been watching the website space a little bit more. So there are some tools out there that are working on creating builders that are based on AI. And I think that's a
Mm.
really interesting space to watch right now. I know you've had a lot of experience in the past with builders and
Yep.
understanding like, you know, where WordPress is going. And so like the whole thing
Yeah.
with blocks, everything is block based now,
Yep.
whether it's WordPress or not.
Mhm.
And this idea of patterns and libraries of sections and being able to have things that are you can create something and then you can change the style of it easily with a few clicks. You
Yep.
could just give it a prompt and then it will look at the library of sections that you have
Mhm.
available and say, based on your prompt, these sections would probably make sense for you.
Mm.
Like it's a very natural thing, I think, for AI to be an assistant in building
Yes.
websites. And I think most of the platforms realize that. So, like, for example, Cadence, the theme that I like to use is making it so that they have a cloud library and you can like just type in a prompt of what you want your page to look like, and it will look at the sections in their library and build a page for you based on your prompt. Webflow actually has some really interesting things that they're integrating into their platform with AI. It feels a lot like the Photoshop thing, right? It's like you
Mhm.
can go in and you can just tell it to make a widget that does this in this one section of your website, and it just builds that for you. And like that kind of thing is
Cool.
coming to a lot of different website builders. I think we'll see that integrated across the board pretty much everywhere within the next year.
I think you and I had a conversation years ago about how opening up a design capabilities to photographers or to anybody for that matter um, could be fantastic. It could also, be a bad thing because not all photographers are designers, right? So
Right.
like they can make a lot of bad choices, and AI could make a bad choice for you, and the photographer might think it's a good choice. So I think there's and I'm sure you agree. Tell me if at this point if you disagree with me, but I think in that situation where it's that open, I think a lot of photographers need to tread lightly.
I think so
Because-
too. I think it's interesting because there's a few things that are going to happen. I mean, you have to think about how controversial some of the things are with like Midjourney, for example, or even
Mhm.
the situation with the Photoshop. Some people really think it's a bad idea and it opens all this can of worms. Same kind of thing is going to happen here. It's not just going to be that you can give it a prompt and it will build based on a library. You could also say, you know, go to this website and you put in a competitor and say, build me a site that looks like this. And
Mhm.
it will be able to pretty closely mimic the style, the layout, the sections. It might just like rewrite the copy based on some parameters that you gave it, but it'll be very easy to copy other people based on just typing a prompt and it rebuilding
Right.
something that's technically not the same. It's unique to you and it looks different, but it really just copied them. I mean, there's going to be that kind of stuff as well, so it'll be interesting. I think you're right though. Like you still need to have some idea of what makes a website effective. I think we'll
Yeah.
probably talk about that some more here in a few minutes, but like that's you can't just trust an AI to just build it for you and it's going to be great. Not always,
Yeah.
right? Like you probably need to have some foundational knowledge yourself so that you can check it and then make adjustments.
Yes, 100%. But in like the Photoshop case, you're talking this being able to expand a scene, for example, go beyond what you originally shot in camera in frame, literally expanding the crop, and then boom, with a click, literally a click, it's filling in the gaps with additional, you know, parts of the scene, trees and water and sky and all that stuff. It's hit or miss, doesn't always work, but when it works beautifully.
Mhm.
But then there's the issue where right now, there's this line, there's this fine line, I think. Right now, in the terms of this Photoshop beta, you're not supposed to use those tools for commercial work.
Mm.
And if you're just expanding, right, your crop, for example, and it's doing generative fill, is that really pulling it from someone else's work and using it in yours, or is it just using AI to replicate what's already in your photo in a different, without it looking like a mirror?
Right. The whole ethics of like how AI was trained and whether you should be using it just because of how they even got the data is like a whole different conversation. I don't think I even want to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sophia, AI makes your own unique creative process faster. That is what AI should be. And I think there's a lot of people who are trying to use it as the end all be all. And um, Corey and I are definitely on the same page, 100%. That we know it's not the end all be all. You always need to put in the additional work. Like Grammarly as an example, right?
Mm.
Grammarly. I have been using Grammarly for years. This is before ChatGPT existed. Grammarly has had their own spelling and grammar AI for years. There's a lot of services out there. WordTune, Jasper even acquired Outright not long ago. So there's a lot of tools that basically do what Grammarly does. But Grammarly
Mhm.
also just added their own sort of ChatGPT type of thing in there where you can now highlight a paragraph, highlight a sentence, and say expand it, improve it, change the way that it's read. Like change the voice, things like that. So
Yeah.
that's another area where AI is benefiting photographers to help with their writing, but not doing all the writing for you, just helping you to improve on it.
So this is a topic that I'm really interested in talking about. Right now, I see a lot of people who are saying to photographers, "You can now just use ChatGPT to write your content for you."
Right.
I mean, like what we're saying seems like it might be obvious. Like you don't use it to just write for you. You should probably use it to help your Not everyone believes that. So
Right.
there are a lot of educators out there. There's a lot of people selling some sort of course. There's a lot of ads in my Facebook feed. There's a lot of people in the Facebook groups that I run and the Facebook groups that I'm in who are just suggesting that you go and use ChatGPT and give it some prompts and take the content, publish it to your blog, and that's how you do blogging these days. That's what they're kind of teaching. And then there's kind of a next stage of people who are like, no, you can't just take exactly what it gives you. You need to make it your own. And they will talk about how you might want to use ChatGPT to write an outline and then make sure that you adjust the tone so it sounds more like you and make sure that you blah, blah, blah. Like they give some basic tips that make it slightly better, but it's still just written by AI. Like they're still basically they're making content that's more readable, that's more passable as your own, but it's still not your own. And I think that's a problem for me whenever people are starting to use it to be deceptive. They're trying to trick people to think that they wrote it whenever they didn't write it.
Yeah.
So one of my hot takes is that if you're doing content marketing exclusively for marketing. Like if it's because you want to drive traffic and you don't care about adding value, then you're spamming the internet, right? Like I think that's the whole point of content marketing should be that you as a human have some sort of either expertise or even just experience in something and you want to share it with other people because you think that they will find value in that. You think it might help them in something that they are doing. So if you're not trying to add value and you're just trying to take by getting traffic to your site and converting those people to clients, and you're not thinking about like what am I actually adding to the online conversation that people want to read, then I think I don't know. I just don't think it's worth doing content marketing if you're not going to be adding value.
Yeah. 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 On that topic, so something I've been working on, I haven't even shared this with you yet, but something I've been working on for the Imagine community is, and I completely agree that it has to be your own, but I feel like if educated correctly, photographers could use prompts to get blog content, because there's a lot of photographers who just don't know how to start with a
Yep.
blog article, right? So I think if used correctly, photographers could utilize prompts to create blog content that is more personalized to their actual work. And again, not the end all be all. You know, if somebody takes the output from the prompt, they still need to edit it. They still need to go through it and you know, make sure that it's adjusted and edited to their liking and whatnot. But I have been putting together prompts that are like fill in the blanks for the photographers to uh, basically create an event blog article, a wedding article, a headshot article, a variety of different situations.
Mhm.
And my goal is to offer it for free to everybody in the Imagine community.
But like, what
So
are those? What kind of
yeah,
what's the value of that? Like, if I am using AI with some prompts to
yep,
generate some story about a wedding, am I really a storyteller? Like it if I should either let the images speak for themselves, or
mm-hmm,
I should tell real stories because I was there as a human sharing in that
yep,
experience and I have insight that no
yep,
one else can have because I was there to tell it.
yeah. So that's the interesting thing. So the prompts that I'm building, the fill in the blanks, are actually you sharing stories from the photo session or the event or something funny from it, something that stood out, things like that. But it's really for the photographers who don't know how to get a blog article going, of photographers who just they made some notes from the job because they know they have to blog about it, but they don't know
But
where
why?
how to
Why do they have
get
to
it
blog
going.
about it?
I mean,
Here's the thing. So my
yeah,
one take is if you're blogging sessions and
mhm,
weddings, the only real purpose is, well, I shouldn't say only. There's many reasons, but they're basically because you want to showcase that you are an active photographer who has real clients. You want to put your portfolio out there in a dynamic way that can be sorted later. It's not That's not the kind of blogging that I consider to be content marketing. I mean, it is.
mhm,
It is content. It's going to go on social. It's going to get shared.
right,
Clients are going to feel proud that they got to be on your website and they got featured and there's a story about them. But in a lot of those cases, you don't really need written content. Like, this isn't the goal behind most of that content is not to rank on Google. Like, if you're doing that because you think that's how you get traffic from Google, that's not really it anymore, in my opinion. Sometimes you can get lucky and maybe if you're a wedding photographer and you have an event at a wedding venue and that's not like a competitive venue, maybe it's new, maybe there's not a lot of people who have written about it before, maybe just putting one wedding with some nice keywords in the title and a story that's 300 words or whatever, follow the Yoast checklist or something like that, maybe you'll rank with that. But for the most part, any competitive market, any place where there's already a lot of content about venues, nowadays there's all these new guides, like
mhm,
directories and stuff for different venues, and it's hard to get onto the first page for anything like that. For anything that's even remotely competitive with just regular client work or sessions. Should you be blogging them? I think so. I think people are sleeping on doing a sneak peek soon after a wedding on their own blog and then having people share it everywhere because they're excited about it. To
mhm,
me, that is a huge part of marketing, but it's not a huge part of SEO. I think from a search perspective, the kind of content that people need to be focused on is content that comes from the place of experience and expertise, either
yep,
as a photographer, so sharing about your photography journey, your things that you're learning as you are becoming a professional photographer and a business person, um, your personal life. So maybe if I'm a dad in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm going to write about things that I do with my kids around my city because I want to help other families around here and I'm a family photographer, something like that. I think that kind of
mhm,
expertise is important. Um, and then there was another thing I had. I guess maybe just the general process of working with a photographer might be worth sharing. Although a lot of that stuff is extremely competitive and it's hard to write something unique there. But anyway, like I think it's the informative content that is helpful to the audience of people that you're trying to reach because they're already online trying to either talk about that or search for that. That's the kind of stuff we need to be writing if you want to drive more traffic from search. Whereas the other stuff is like, let's build a portfolio, and the content that you write with it is less important, I think, overall.
yeah. It's interesting. See, like, um, I look at it like it's a combination of sort of what you said, a little bit of an SEO play, but also that brand awareness, just to get more content out there that again people can share, your clients can share. Um, and so what I've been putting together, the outputs have been pretty interesting. They've been pretty good.
I have to see.
And
I want to see that because, like,
yeah,
Dylan and I were talking about this recently, and he
yeah,
was messing with some tool that I want to say it was I don't know, somebody who has a blogging tool that basically you can put in some stuff like that about your session, and
mm,
it spits out like a story, like it's actually fully written or whatever.
mm,
And I looked at him and I was like, Mm, I don't know. Maybe what it needs is to be trained on things that you've already written in the past or something. But I
sure.
was like, Dylan, you would never say that stuff. Like that doesn't look like anything
Right,
that you would write.
right.
People who say like I'm not a good writer, I don't know what to
Yeah,
say. Well, then maybe don't say anything. Like look, you're a photographer. Like you use your
yeah,
photos to tell a story, or
yeah,
get better at storytelling. Like people who are making these
yeah,
excuses, like I don't know what to write. Well, maybe that means you're boring. Like
yeah.
learn
So
learn how to tell stories.
yeah, I mean, I look at it like there's services out there that offer blogging for photographers, outsource blogging for
Right. I
photographers,
hate
right?
that.
I know you do. And so this is sort of like a way that any photographer could utilize a free document and potentially a free tool, and try it and see how it works for them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because I know that from my previous experience of um, there's a lot of photographers who just want to blog, but just despise it, don't want to like put too much effort into it, but they want to do it. So
Yeah, I
like
think
it's just a way
you've
for me
gotta
to
flip
like,
the script, dude. Like, I
yeah,
think that's the
yeah,
problem. People shouldn't be despising this. It's like it's a privilege to have a platform to do
yeah,
personal publishing on the web. Like, that's why I've always loved WordPress. That was their mission, right? Create
yep,
a personal publishing platform so that
yeah,
people have their own space. This is before social media, before Facebook and Instagram and all these places where we might go and post our work now. There was your website. That's where you
yeah,
posted your work. And so I
yeah,
think that if you hate doing it, you're looking at it wrong. Like you should be
yeah,
excited that you get to
true,
share your work with the world on your own
yeah,
platform in your own way with your own voice.
yeah,
I think that if you are doing it simply because of marketing and you think you have to blog and you despise it, don't do it. That's what I have to
mm,
say. Like I think it's either you get
yeah.
into your head that I'm excited to do this, or mm, maybe it's not the right thing, the right marketing channel for you.
So I'm curious. There's a lot of people watching right now. I'm curious for everybody who's watching, whether you're actually watching or just listening, whatever it is. Would you be interested in a document that basically gives you prompts that could get your blog started, or do you feel like Corey does, where you should be doing it 100% or not doing it at all? If you are interested in that document, put yes. If you agree with Corey, then put no.
Now, to be fair, I will say this. I have an
Yeah.
article that is worth checking out. It's how photographers should be using ChatGPT. I published it in
Yeah.
December. Look at that article and see some of
Mhm.
the examples that I give for how you can use it to help your blogging. I'm not saying that you should never use these tools to help with your blogging. I'm
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't be using it mm, to do. I don't know how to put it. I think it's really interesting to see what the tools can help you get better at. And like how earlier I said,
Yeah.
if you're not good at telling stories, maybe get better at storytelling. These tools
Yep.
can make you better at storytelling, right?
Yes. Yes.
You can talk to it back and forth in a conversation and have it help tease out the things. You can say things like, uh, so an interesting prompt that I tried recently, I was writing an article and I took the topic of the article and I asked chat, I was like, why would someone want to read an article about, and then I put in the topic that I was writing about, and
Hmm.
getting the insight that it was like, well, they might want to know this, they might want to know this, they probably came because of this. That kind of insight is remarkably accurate, I think. I was like, wow, that's actually a really good point. And so being able to, if you feel like you don't know what to say, being able to ask it what you should say based on who you're trying to reach, I think that's a really powerful way to use it. So for me, one of the big pieces is defining your audience and defining your expertise, right? So being able to have these conversations just in a regular way with a chat agent and say, okay, so maybe I can give you an example. I was working
Yeah.
with this some yesterday because I'm trying to put together some sort of series of prompts that will let you just go through, have a conversation with ChatGPT, and then improve your website drastically based on the output, not taking what it gives you and putting it on your website, but having it act sort of like me, like as a consultant, where it's going to give you some insights that you might not have thought about based on all of the knowledge that it has from all of the articles on the internet about SEO and marketing and things like that. And so the first thing I was trying to do is come up with, I think it's really important to have a unique selling proposition as a photographer. Like, what makes you stand out from your competitors? Why should someone hire you instead of the other options that they have in the market? And sorry, I got distracted by what's up, Joshua? Glad to see you're here. So what was I saying? Okay, so having a USP, right? But you might be a photographer who's like, I don't really know what makes me unique. I'm not sure what helps me stand out against my competitors. That's when you use a tool like this. There's a couple of things you can do. One is you can have it analyze your competitors and tell you what are their strengths and see which ones you align with, which ones you don't agree with. But also I had it give me a list of questions. I was like, give me a list of questions that I can ask myself to determine my unique selling proposition as a photographer. It gave me a list, and I thought it was pretty good. But then I said, let me see what the exact prompt was. I was like, those are helpful. Can you give me even more questions and make them more specific and dynamic so that they really tease out the important details? So like really getting it to giving it a little pushback and be like, you can do better than that. It's so interesting to see how much better it does on the next prompt. And then on that one, so some of the things it gave me, like, what specific photography services do I offer that are in high demand or have a unique market appeal? How do these services address the specific needs or pain points of my target audience? And then it has all of these things. How do I create a memorable and enjoyable experience for clients? What special techniques, rituals, or surprises do I incorporate to make each session remarkable? And so then you can go through and answer. Give me 10 questions. If you went through and answered every one of those 10 questions and then took the question and answer and gave it back as a prompt and said, now write me a succinct, unique selling proposition and give me several variations, including headlines and copy that I can use on my website based on this, that's how you would tease out something that you didn't know how to say by just asking it to basically you get it to get the words out of you by asking it to do that. That's amazing that it can do that.
Yep. Yeah. There's one of my favorite prompts. I've been calling it the ultimate prompt. It's a prompt that actually gets ChatGPT to give you the best prompt for what you're trying to get.
Give it. Yeah, exactly.
The end result. It's a prompt generator to generate the it's the weirdest thing to like contemplate in your head, but when you actually use it, you're like, oh, this makes sense. And it just gets you where you need to be.
Yeah, I literally asked it that. I said, so I said, once photographers have answered all of these questions, how should they ask ChatGPT to craft a polished USP? And it said, to craft a polished unique selling proposition based on these, they can ask ChatGPT the following. And it gave me a paragraph, which is the prompt. So basically, it definitely can give you the prompts to get better responses. You just have to start thinking a little more meta. Like you have to think, how do I use this to get to the thing that I want to share with people? Because I think that's the truth is, even though you might say, I don't have anything to say, I don't know how to tell stories, I don't know. I think the truth is it's in there, right? And it's like, you might just, maybe you're not great with words or you have some writer's block or something like that. These tools can obliterate all of that. And I think that's the beauty of using these to create content is we can create more dynamic content. I can then take the content and filter it back through and say, what's missing here? What might be some objections that people would have to this? Will people take, I've even done this for some of my Facebook posts. I've been like, are people going to think that I'm a jerk if I write this? And it will like analyze what I was going to say and then be like, some people might think that you're a jerk if you say it like that. Here's a better way of saying it. And so all kinds of things like that you can use it for.
It's so funny. I got a lot of yeses and a lot of nos. Some people agree with you. Some people are like indifferent. So
some people are like, screw it. I just want the AI to do it for me.
I also shared your link to your ChatGPT article. on Feel Your Photos. So that's in the chat as well. Um, okay, so there was a couple questions or comments. There was this one. Tom, how do search results reflect such derivative content?
I'm not quite sure exactly what he was referring to there. Tom, if you're there, maybe can you ask that question again, or like give a little more context of what you're looking for? Because it's an interesting conversation if you're talking about like how is search handling AI generated content, or how is search incorporating generated text. There's all kind of different angles you could go at that. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly what you're asking there.
Yep. So Charlotte, aside from ChatGPT, let's talk about the elephant in the room. What's a photo anymore? Are AI images our future? If so, what's original work anymore? I don't think AI is going to fully replace artists. There will be artists who purely use the AI. I think that is a new form of art now. I don't think it's going to replace the artist. There are a lot of
Maybe not in the
photographers who,
short term.
yeah. I
Long
mean,
term stuff, it's gonna
I
get
don't
so
know.
weird, Scott. Like it's gonna be like,
It's
think
gonna be
about
weird.
Ready Player One. Like, have you seen the
Yeah.
stuff with the MRI scans where they can show people a picture and then have an MRI scan, and then the AI can determine what the image looks like just from the visual, the brain activity? Like, people are going to be able to have waking dreams where you can imagine anything you want, and then AI generates it in a full
Mm,
VR setting, like the stuff that Meta's working on with AI and multimodal combinations of it's going to be really weird at some point,
yeah.
but that might be 10-15 years down the road before that's like available to everyone.
Yeah. 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 I hope it's not that soon. I hope it's way further down the line. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. To me, it's like I think it's going to be a mixture of you know, human art combined with AI will become a more normal thing sooner than later. But I don't see it replacing fully
You know what I
anytime
think?
soon.
This is maybe a whole different conversation, but I do think something that could be really interesting, as you probably know, at imagine you are they're either working on something like this or connected to someone who is, but I think there needs to be some sort of canonical source for raw images that basically when you take an image, it's tagged, it's basically, maybe it'd even be an NFT. Like, it's something that's it gets uploaded to the cloud immediately, and it's like, this is the raw original photo.
Mhm.
This was taken from a camera in this location at this time
Yeah.
by this person who's verified user of this camera. Their fingerprint was on the camera, something like that. And then that will be like, for photojournalism, I think that's going to be incredibly important. Like in the future,
Yeah. Yeah.
for us to be able to know that something actually happened instead of someone just AI generating something that
Yeah.
is very convincing that it happened, that's going to be critical. But I think
Yeah.
also it will come into play for professional photographers who might need to prove that they actually did something, or they own some work, or maybe
Yeah.
if something's trained on that work, there's something embedded in it that then gets passed on to the derivatives and stuff like that.
Yeah. So regarding that, a lot of that is currently some of what you said is currently happening.
It's
So
happening. Yeah.
so we partnered with Fujifilm cameras,
Yeah.
right? At WPPI and at Imaging USA this past year. Um, so Fuji had the prototypes of these cameras. The cameras are out, the software is out, but it's not fully out. But so we had this proof of concept basically that happened at those two shows, and they're still doing demonstrations about it every day. But basically, what's happening is in these Fujifilm cameras, and there's two cameras. They go directly. They don't need a phone. They go from the camera straight to the internet,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they go right up to Frame.io, which is an Adobe company.
Yeah.
And Frame.io historically has been for video editing through the cloud, basically,
Mm-hmm.
so that like an editor here and a producer across the world can work on something at the same time.
So they worked
Or
out the latency issues because of that.
Yeah, yeah. So what happens now is Frame.io is now getting into the photo space.
Right.
They're expanding beyond video. So what happens is in the proof of concept, uh, you take the photo on your Fuji camera, it goes up to Frame.io. Then we grab the raw photo that's in Frame.io instantly through the API. We don't actually take the raw photo. We take the data basically through the API. We take the data of what the photo is, we edit it with one of our an AI profile from Imagine, and then send it back to Frame.io. SmugMug takes the raw file with the XMP file and the JPEG output that we gave and puts it on SmugMug
Right.
all instantly.
Yeah, and
So
that's like a rough proof of concept that will be like far more polished, and there will be a few players who are like key in that. I think some will be more for the professional, like wedding and portrait and event
yeah.
photographers, where some will be more for photojournalists. But eventually, we'll have this model of verification on multiple levels. Like I said,
Yep.
you'll probably have a fingerprint sensor or an eye scanner in your camera that can verify the identity of the human who was responsible for generating that work. And I do think that something similar to the way that we use no index tags on websites when we don't want a search engine to index it, we'll have no AI tags on images where you can't train a model on that image, or at least we're discouraging it. So we have some sort of stance for being able to say, don't use my work. Although I don't think most people will do that, but some will be able to.
And then that tag, by the way, that for like ChatGPT, I don't know if Bard has it, but ChatGPT, there's one of those to prohibit or try to prohibit ChatGPT from scanning your site.
Yep.
That you could throw in sort of like a no index type of thing.
Yep.
So
it's interesting
I don't know how well they work.
Yeah.
But
Tom verified, if it's not unique, does it score in results? So this is actually a point that I wanted to bring up today. I think that right now it is more critical than ever for you to write content that doesn't exist yet on the internet. Because the thing is, if the content already exists online, then the AI that are going to be answering the questions can use the information that's already out there, and that's basically going to become common knowledge. Whatever's already on the internet becomes common. If it's already out there multiple times, then they might not even attribute. Like they might just say, this is common knowledge on the web, we can just answer this. However, I've seen some really interesting examples in the web experiments with Google using Bard, just trying with Bing, where you're seeing that they realize that they need to offer a balanced perspective in this sort of AI answer, and so they're looking for the standard answer and some alternative ideas, some new perspectives. Perspectives, by the way, that's a keyword that we want to come back to. But they're looking for, where can we source human information from the web that's not the same as what everybody else is writing. And in the SEO world, this has been a thing for a long time. We have tools like Surfer SEO. We have all of these tools that basically they look at the corpus of ranking pages and they say, if you want to rank, you need to do what all these pages are doing. And so they'll say you need this many keywords in your H2s and this many blah, blah, blah. And they'll tell you the exact formula to be able to rank, and people do it and it works. But it won't work forever. In fact, that kind of SEO, and that's what even if you're using Jasper right now, or if you're just writing with any sort of AI content writer, a lot of what it's doing is looking at the web, building an outline based on what it thinks will rank, optimizing that based on the way that things are currently ranking. And then you might be able to outrank the stuff that's currently there based on your authority from your domain or you as a person, but you can't rely on that forever. I think that that's the key here, is that yes, that can work. So to answer Tom's question directly, even if something is not unique right now, I'm seeing a lot of cases where AI content is still doing very well in Google. There were some questions in the beginning on whether Google is going to penalize AI content. They came out and made a very public stance that we're not going to penalize AI content because it's AI, even if we can detect that it's AI. We just want it to be unique and helpful content. Whoever writes it, it should be helpful to humans. If it's helpful to humans, we don't care how you write it. So it's not like that it's necessarily a problem, but it's more like the people who are using AI to write their content, if they're using processes that are just repeating more of the same common information, then Google's own AI will just do that in the future. They'll just say, we don't really need your stuff that was written by ChatGPT because we've got Bard who can just write it for us. And so I think that's really the key here, is you need to create content that comes from a place of experience, expertise, and say, I know this because I'm a human who's done it, and I can show you unique pictures. I can give you perspectives that no one else has seen. And I mentioned I want to come back to perspectives because it's another feature that is part of the experiments they're doing with Google. You know how if you go to Google, you type in something, you have the web results, and you have like the image results at the top in the tab. They're adding a new tab that's called perspectives. And the perspectives tab is basically pulling from forums, social sites, Twitter, like all of the places where people are having conversations around a topic. They're now making it so that when you type in a query, you can basically see the current active. Reddit is a big one that it's pulling from in perspectives. It's like, where are people talking about this online? You can join the current conversation about it if you go here. I think that is going to be so
Huge.
key.
Yeah.
If you want to
Yeah.
be doing content marketing in 2023 and beyond, you probably need to not just be publishing on your site as like, here are my thoughts and my ideas and my experience, but also going to these other places where people are talking about that and interjecting yourself into that conversation
Yeah.
so that you can, Google's going to look and they're going to say, okay, CoreyPotter.com, he said this, this, and this. But has Corey Potter as a person ever commented on Reddit? Does he have a Twitter? Does he
Right.
participate in industry forums? Is he, active in this, that, and the other? Has he been interviewed in these groups? And all of those things are going to really play into the trustworthiness and authority scores that Google gives an author.
Yeah. So like the AI is going to start analyzing through learning. It's going to see what you're doing all over the place through what it's indexing, and then whether it's Reddit or other forums or anything, and then in theory you could rank well if it connects you to something you're doing in perspectives. Your own site could start ranking better because it's seeing you're being active all over the place.
Right, exactly. And there's one other big thing I want to talk about before we like take questions or wrap up or whatever. I think that something that really people need to be thinking about right now is how queries are going to change. So if you're thinking about like, how do I get found by AI, right? Like, that's something that's on my mind right now, is that I've been teaching people about SEO, but I really do believe that search engines are going to be on the decline over the next few years. I think that we'll still have people who are using Google for probably decades, but I think that the amount of market dominance that a search engine has, where people actually actively go to a search engine to use it, is going to go down, 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 down. And I think that as we think about how to optimize for AI generated answers, we need to think about how are people going to be asking better questions when they realize what the AI can give them. So, for example, let's say that right now I might go to Google and I just have been trained by using Google to search for something like Columbia wedding photographers or something like that, a keyword that's just simple, that gets the point across. And I know that Google's going to give me a set of results for local photographers who are wedding photographers. But in the future, I might say something more like, I need a wedding photographer who can help me create a schedule for my wedding and who won't make my guests feel awkward. And it's going to look at the reviews of photographers in the area to look for keywords that people have said, this made my guests feel relaxed and comfortable. And it's going to cite those reviews as sources in that answer. Or I might be able to say, find me a family photographer who showcases diversity in their portfolio and sells digital files for a family session for under $1,000. Right. And it's going to look through my entire website and say, it's going to click on the website and it's going to look for pricing and it's going to click that and it's going to look and see if it's under $1,000 and whether it includes digital files. And it'll bring all that back and answer it in a generated answer, and then give sources for where it got that information. Or I might say, like, I need a headshot on a clean white background with studio lighting, and I also want a natural expression that makes me look friendly and intelligent. Which photographer should I contact in my area? It's going to look for photographers who have a studio. It's going to look for photographers who definitely offer headshots. Soon it's going to be looking at actually analyzing the images on the website and deciding whether, you'll be able to describe the kind of images that you want, and the AI will work with the image recognition and it will analyze the entire thing. So all of this will definitely be coming to the market. And so it's a matter of, can we make sure that the information that people are looking for is clearly put on our website in a way that a crawler, an AI bot, it's interesting to look at how they work. So that's what one takeaway that I hope people have here is that there's two tools right now that make this relatively easy. One is Bing. If you get the new Edge browser, or just like sign up for the new Bing or whatever, you can browse the web. Bard is also kind of the same idea. And then ChatGPT Plus, if you have that, you can use GPT-4 with web browsing. Use one of those tools and start asking it questions about your website and see if it can answer them in the way that you expected. I think that's at least the very minimum you should be doing right now to make sure that the AI can, first of all, access the site, and second, analyze and give you back the information you're looking for. If you're doing any sort of sales pages, landing pages, ad campaigns, anything like that, the other day I gave it a sales page, and I was like, what's the product that I'm offering here? Who does it seem is the market? And like, give me summarize this sales page. And the way that it was able to do it it blew my mind. I was like, okay, that's actually pretty good. But in some cases, you'll find, oh, that's not what I wanted it to
Yeah.
think. And I think that's a really good way to it's user testing with an
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. I think that's something that I never thought about doing. So you just gave me a really good thing to play around with, is being able to give it a URL and be like, what does this read as for that's the audience? And if it doesn't say your exact, audience as a photographer, whatever you're going for, then you need to adjust.
Yep, exactly.
So very, very smart. I never thought about doing that, and now I'm going to play with that.
Sweet.
So as we wrap up, I do want to share a few things. So Tom, I had this up on screen earlier. He said, "My Imagine profile is so dialed in now, I trust it to process live." That's referring to what I was talking about with the Fujifilm camera.
Mhm.
So anybody who is interested in having your editing style learned by our AI, you can go ahead and do so. If you don't already have an account, you can sign up right now with that QR code or that URL that's up on the screen. It'll give you 1,000 free edits. And we also have a coupon code for anybody who is already in a trial and wants to subscribe. I'll bring that back up on screen now. Embrace it, as one word. Use that when you go to subscribe. We'll add $20 in editing credit to your account as well. That expires on June 6th. So please get to using that soon so you don't miss out. So thank you, Tom. I'm glad that your profile is dialed in. Tom, if you're still here, I'm actually wondering, was it dialed in before profile adjustments and you're just fine tuning it, or did profile adjustments, which came out like 3 weeks ago, is that what got you perfectly dialed in? Very curious. Um, uh, I'm gonna get to Reza's comment in a second, but my friend Jamie, do you know Jamie from Momenta?
I'm not sure. I think so.
Okay, so Jamie is incredible. She does a lot with documentary photographers, humanitarian photographers, things like that. So Jamie, thank you for tuning in. Scott, I always love who you and Imagine choose to discuss relevant topics on discussions like this on your channel. Thanks for sharing your perspective on this, Corey. Yeah. So Jamie, if you and Corey have never talked before, you need to talk.
Yeah, let's talk.
So um, and then Reza. So it's two comments. The first is, I'm a professional photographer long term in the game. Can I share and profit from my distinct photography style within your community if I train Imagine in the future? If not, consider such capability in your platform. Basically, if it happens, I will see you more of sort of a partner rather than be worried about losing my job to amateurs. So we are working on a sort of a marketplace so that any Imagine user can. Right now, you can share your profile already, but we're working on a marketplace where Imaginers will be able to sell their profiles.
Like presets,
That's in,
basically.
yeah, like presets, but it's built into Imagine. So
Mhm.
that's in due time. It something we're working on. So,
Can I say one
oh
more thing, Scott?
yeah,
I want to make sure that I don't want to come across as like this person who's like a gatekeeper of like, you shouldn't be publishing if you're not going to write excellent content that comes from a place of experience. Like, I do believe that personally, but
yes,
I understand that
yeah,
I'm somewhat of an idealist when it comes to content marketing. And I have to, right? I have to have a place that I have to stand for something. I don't want to be the guy who's just teaching you to
yeah,
pump out content just so that you can like
yeah,
take advantage of those schmucks who are going to come to your website and you can convert them to clients. Like, I'm not that person. That being said, I do think that right now you should experiment like that. That's really
yes,
like my core belief is you should try stuff and see what works for you and then evolve that over time, right? I think that right now there are opportunities. If you're an early mover with AI and you start producing more content, I'd rather see more people do more experiments than like be scared that they shouldn't be publishing something because it's not quite perfect, right? So I
yeah,
do want people to go out there and maybe use ChatGPT or some other similar tool to create something that it's close enough and you want to see how it does and publish that. And then get, as you start using the tool, you will get better at refining, at asking better questions,
yeah,
at following up with actually, I want it to be like this, or actually, I want you to insert this story that I am going to tell, or you'll edit something and then repaste that back into ChatGPT and tell it to try again. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to publish some things to see if it might work for you. You might get really good results from something that isn't perfect, and I'm okay with that. I think you should do it. I hope that we can aspire to not spam the web with more of the same information that's already out there, just so that we can try to take advantage of people. I hope that we can add unique voices and perspectives to online conversations and make the internet better for everyone.
100%. Well said. Now, again, just to back up what Corey just said. So Corey and I have known each other for many years at this point, and we agree on a lot and we disagree on a lot, and we can still be friends.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
so, um, I definitely agree with a lot of what Corey said. Even if I put out these prompts for everybody in the Magic community, it doesn't mean that you have to use it every single blog article and you have to use it and not change it. I want you to change it. I want you to personalize it. I don't want you to just use it and copy paste and be done. So, with that said, uh, thank you, Corey, for hopping in with me. This was a blast. A lot of people, I'm sure, walked away with some juicy things. Hey, I even learned something. You inspired me with an idea I didn't even think of. Thank you so much for that, Joseph. So insightful and interesting. Thank you guys. Um, so yeah, in just to wrap things up. We'll sign off. If you are not already in the Magic community, please join today. There's that QR code and the URL up on the screen right now. Just scan that. It'll open up your Facebook app, and you'll be able to join the Magic community today. And I want to see you there. We'll talk more AI there, hang out, and you'll get notified when the next event is coming up. And we'll have more of these, by the way, of fight it or embrace it type conversations on different aspects of AI. So stay tuned for more. So again, thank you, Corey, for chatting.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.